Trenton 365 with Jacque Howard. Profiling the businesses, organizations, and people that make Trenton better.
Yeah.
You know what the easy thing that's already set up?
Yeah, really.
It's like,
oh, now I'm going to have to work for it? Huh?
yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Trenton 365 show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. Getting some technical difficulties here, but we're going to get this all worked out. You're listening and watching, or you're listening over WIMG 1300, New Jersey's oldest radio station, and a 3-time Stellar Award winner. You can send us an email, and that's at WIMG1300.com. WIMG1300 on Twitter and Facebook as well, and the Trenton 365 show is on Facebook. You can send me an email there, trenton365show@gmail.com. And remember, you can always post your events to the Trenton 365 community calendar on Facebook as well. So in the studio with me, I have members of REJS Entertainment, REJS Entertainment, and the website is REJS Jazz. And you can now find us on Instagram, REJS Jazz, Twitter, REJS Jazz, and the website is rejsjazz.com. And I'm extremely excited about having my friends here. We're all part of this collective or this group that hosts monthly jazz events here in the Mercer County region. And we've had some amazing talent, and we're going to get into those details in just a little bit. But the first introduction is to Eric Thomas, who is the brainchild behind this idea, and James Freeman. And then John's going to be joining us in just a bit. Shout out to our Rich Jackson, who is our webmaster, but he's also very camera shy, so he's not coming on tonight. So Eric and James, to get started, first of all, welcome back to the show. As always, you know I love being around you guys, and I'm super excited.
It's always a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome.
Always.
Awesome. So let's get started, Eric. And it's been a little while since you've been on. I mean,
Right.
James and Rich were on recently, about 6 months ago. You had some other activities. But what was your idea behind coming up with this idea of hosting jazz shows?
My love for jazz. My mother introduced me to jazz at a very early age. The very first jazz song I ever heard was A Day in the Life by Wes Montgomery. And then she put on Kind of Blue by Miles. And I'm talking about, I'm like 8 or 9 years old. And I fell in love with the music until P-Funk and Ohio Players took over in high school. Then I found my way back into jazz later. And I was introduced to John Coltrane. I was never the same. John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins. I was never the same. I didn't go back to Parliament P-Funk anymore after that. And my mother was a news reporter. In fact, she was the first African-American news reporter at WCTV in Tallahassee, Florida. And she covered the funeral of the late, great Cannonball Adderley. And never did I know that I would have some indirect connection with the Adderley family, because Nat Adderley became the music director for Luther Vandross. But my mother introduced me to the Adderley family, Nat Adderley. I have an autographed album by the family because she covered the funeral. But that's how I got into jazz, and my love for jazz has grown ever since high school. And I wanted to do jazz in Trenton and as well as the East Windsor, Princeton area. I know that jazz exists, but I want to give it more. I learned a lot. There's a lot more artists out there that people just don't know about, and I want to give them a platform. And James loves jazz just as much as I do, such as Rich, and soon you'll hear from John. We all love jazz very much. And instead of always going to New York or Philadelphia, we want to do it ourselves. And we also brought you along.
Yeah,
because you love jazz as much as we do.
Yeah. It's awesome. Great. And James?
Well, the story goes that Eric was going to put the show together for a young man named Scott Tixier, who's a tremendous jazz violinist. And he asked me and Rich to help out. And we just enjoyed it so much that we decided to try a few more shows that year. And we decided, let's make this a venture. Let's make this a journey that we can enjoy, because we enjoy the music and we enjoy, getting to know the artists. So let's just see where it takes us.
And I want to jump in there. I remember that when that show was being organized, I was in Exit 7A studio with Scott Miller.
Okay.
working on some stuff for Trenton 365, and he said, "Hey, I just got someone contacted me and said they need some sound done for a show at the Big Easy," and I'm like, that's kind of cool. And Scott's very much an artistic person, so he's kind of scatterbrained. So we went directly from doing Trenton 365 stuff to talking about this jazz show that was going to be happening at the Big Easy, around the corner from his studio.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't stop talking about it. But now, lo and behold, I think back and I say, okay, I know why spiritually, why he was led to keep talking about this. So then he had mentioned your name. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, Eric Thomas. I said, man, I know that name. And I couldn't put two and two together. And then we talked on the phone, and I'm like, is this Eric Thomas from Trenton Children's Chorus? And you're like, yeah. And I said, this is Maddie's dad, Jacque. And it was like, oh. And then next thing I know, Scott was in the town. Evanique performed with him that night as well, Evanique Prenay. Mm-hmm. And next thing I know, we're talking about like doing some jazz shows. You asked me to be a part of it, and I help host and help promote the R.E.J.S Entertainment. And it's been amazing, the amount of talent that you've brought to this region.
Yeah, we've been very blessed, yeah.
And exposed me to. I mean, I'm more of a standards kind of a jazz person, but now my horizons are now far-reaching because of you guys. And, the 30-plus CDs you let me borrow.
I haven't seen them yet.
I'll get them back, I promise.
That's where they cataloged.
So literally what you've done is not only bring me into the fold, but you've expanded my horizons and my culture about jazz, and and meeting all these wonderful artists, and then actually giving a platform for them to share their music and so forth. This is exactly what community organizing and building a better community looks like, when people get together who have a like interest, who have a relationship with each other, and say, hey man, let's just try this, and let's just see where it goes. And then you start building, and you start bringing more people in, and John's going to be on the air shortly, and John is part of this crew too, and then family members, and then the venues. It's just an amazing thing that's happening. Can you talk about some of the talent that we've brought to this region?
Oh yeah, well, as James talked about, Scott Texier was the first person that we brought in the area, and Scott's just phenomenal. Some of our viewers, some of your viewers, I should say, who have followed R.E.J.S know that Scott is the next, as Jean-Luc Ponty said, is the next voice, jazz, what did he say? I'm trying to remember the exact words. The new voice of jazz violin, that's what he said. And Scott was our first artist, and Scott has an amazing story too, but he graciously gave his talents to our community, and people were just floored by him. And then I was able to meet Shami Royston. I met Shami up in New Brunswick, and I knew about her sister Tia, and actually I didn't make the connection that they were sisters, but Shami was just an amazing pianist, composer, and I asked her, and she was the second or third artist after Scott when we were doing shows at the Big Easy. And so since then, we've had Scott's twin brother Tony, we've had Mark Whitfield Jr., Brandy Younger, harpist Brandy Younger, Stephen Feike, Monty Croft, John Benitez, Dave Stryker, James, if I miss anyone, I know you'll fill in the gaps.
Gordon James,
Sarah Elizabeth Charles, our first vocalist.
Nicholas Biello.
Right.
Mark Lawson, or Adam Larson. Adam Larson.
Right.
Adam Larson, yep.
Right.
Wait, did you mention...
Charnette Moffett, of course.
And folks, I mean, this is one of those interviews where we're just kind of vibing, and these are what our conversations are like when we're just hanging out. Mm-hmm. But the list of talent, and this is like international talent that we're bringing to this region to to a facility that's worked with us, Tavern on the Lake in Hightstown, which has served for us. But we've also had events at the Big Easy, which is the old former Maxine's.
We had No Hadu at the conservatory.
Yep, the conservatory, Jacque and Steric Ivy's place right here in Trenton. And we're always looking for other venues, large and small, where we can partner with you to bring some of this amazing talent that is part of our repertoire or our group.
And it's expanding. We're excited about E.J. Strickland, who will be performing on the 26th with his band Transient Beings. And just to name two of his outstanding artists, Sarah Elizabeth Charles is singing vocals, who we've had as a headliner herself, and Ben Williams, who toured with Pat Metheny's Unity band. And Ben Williams is just, I don't know who he has not played with, and I'm excited about him coming with EJ. And EJ is the twin brother of Marcus Strickland, who's a well-known saxophone player. So we have some great artists that we've just been fortunate to bring to this area. Some people have doubts about what jazz might be like until they see our shows, and the next thing you know, they're hooked. And June 23rd, we have Victor Provost, who plays the steel drums, and he combines a little Caribbean flavor with jazz, and it's unlike you'd ever. It's just amazing. I can't even describe it, but he's an amazing artist. He's excited, and the word gets around about what we're doing, and it's not like we're hurting for artists. It's just trying to put them in, and one of the biggest, nicest problems we have is deciding who we should bring, who goes at the top of the list, because all these artists are great.
And, one of the things that I appreciate about how this is formed is that each of us, we're all involved, but we all have almost specialties in different things that we do.
Right.
And, James, when you're putting together the contracts and reaching out to the artist management team, can you give a little bit of background about that? Because I think that sometimes people tend to think that it just kind of pops into place. Like you just contact someone, write a check or whatever, and then they come and perform. But there's a lot of background work that goes into that.
Well, initially we decide as a group who we want to try to approach. And then once we approach them, we send them an email or call them, reach out to them. And then it's a process of negotiation a lot of times where we just have to go back and forth, give them the information, let them know what our format is, how we want to run this, how our show goes, and, see if they're comfortable also, and see if they, have a date that's available. So, it's a give and take. Takes a little time to put together, but, it's all worth it in the end.
And you mentioned something that I want you both to chat about and share your feelings about it, and that's how our events go, how the REJS Jazz events go. We've got, besides the, I don't want to, how about you give it away?
Our events are, I just like people to come see it, but because it's hard to describe. The jazz artists, they bring original music. We have a good friend, Teddy Collette, who does our sound, and he does our visuals in the background. He puts this kind of visual graphic arts in the back that complements the music, doesn't take away from the artist. And the place, we try to transform the whole room into like a New Orleans feel or something like that. We have photographs of famous artists, we have props and stuff like that. It's really a relaxing, soothing atmosphere. But the artists, people are there for the artists, and the artists do not hold back. They come to play and people come to listen. There's not a lot of chatter. They just come to listen. And the artists, they go to our website or if they go to our Facebook page, the video footage is there and it speaks for itself, the crowd and what the artist brings.
Shout out to Tawana Dorsey and Eric for the decorations that transformed the room.
And we're going to get more into that just after a short break. Folks, you're listening and watching the Trenton 365 show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard, and you're listening and watching over WPHY Channel 25 covering Mercer County, New Jersey, and WIMG 1300. We'll be back after a short break.
Where did McDonald's get the inspiration
for our new signature crafted recipes?
From all the people who walk through our front doors every day.
You bring your